Go ahead and call to order the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Royal, Michigan, the Thursday, February 14th, 2019 meeting. The first action I'm looking for is approval of the minutes for the January 10th, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
I'll support.
We have a motion and a second. Any additions, corrections, deletions? Not seeing any, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That carries. Do we have any older unfinished business, sir? Oh, went right by it. Let me read the preamble here real quickly. Sorry about that, folks. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board table or adjourn your case due to the absence of a full board, and we are missing a board member this evening, please inform the chairperson immediately following the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit their presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Which takes us right along to item D1, our first item of new business, which is case number F190201, public hearing on the appeal of Alexander Real Estate petitioner and Royal Oak Investments LLC, owner for the following variance to the city's fence ordinance. Waive 2 feet of the minimum required permitted 4 feet fence size within a front yard setback along North Sherman Drive to install a 6-foot tall site obscuring fence within a front yard setback as defined in the zoning ordinance located at 315 Maxwell Avenue. Mr. Murphy.
This property should look familiar to many of the zoning board members. It's a pie-shaped lot at the corner of Maxwell and Sherman Drive. And it was in front of the board in 2017. The board granted variances because it's a corner lot. You granted variances associated with the setback requirement along Sherman, that it be equal to the front yard setback of the home to the west at 920 Sherman Drive. And obviously, it's not possible to build on the lot based on the required setback of the house to the west. The board granted the variance request, and now the petitioner is proposing to construct a 6-foot tall fence along that south property line along Sherman. That fence is within the front yard setback of the house adjacent to the west, and it would limit the height of the fence to only 4 feet tall. Petitioner is proposing a fence at 6 feet in height. Therefore, they're seeking a waiver from that difference in the height in order to be able to place a fence in their rear yard, which is adjacent to the front yard of the home to the west.
Yes, sir.
Joseph, am I looking at this correctly, that basically their whole entire fence that you highlighted would not be allowed within that 6-foot range, or is there a portion of that that would be?
Let's take a look at the survey they've illustrated here, survey they provided. We'll reference the aerial photograph as well. No, there's no portion of that fence that would meet the setback requirement.
Okay.
Doesn't all those have to be something other than?
What's that?
So you're saying doesn't one of those have to be legal?
One of the...
So I'm having a hard time figuring out where this fence is going.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, the fence is let's reference the, and the petitioner can clarify it, but let's reference this, the site plan that they gave us, survey that they gave us. The house along Sherman Drive is further south, west rather, and the fence is along there to the rear of the house and the garage that they built. The 6-foot fence would enclose the entire rear yard to them. That whole entire area is located within the front yard setback of the house adjacent, sadly enough, based on the arrangement of the lots.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Murphy, the home to the west, the driveway is quite close to that, to be the western side of the fence. Is there any requirement for a vision triangle at that southwest corner?
Yes, there is, and it does need to be lowered at that point. The driveway that you're referencing here, there needs to be a 10-foot visibility triangle. I don't know what that offset of the driveway to the nearest point of the proposed fence. Obviously, there's a fence here, a construction fence. I don't know what that distance is and whether that would be within the range of the triangular area to make sure when this person backs out and this person backs out, they can see. But the building department would certainly make sure that that's the case.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, not seeing any. Is the petitioner present? If I could have you introduce yourself for the record and tell us about your plan, sir.
Eric Wallstrom, broker of Alexander Real Estate. I was up here back in 2017 with all of the variances that were granted on this property. We see the major practical difficulty and hardships of this property is that right now there are two rear yard. There's two front yards. There's the front yard along Maxwell, and then per zoning, there's the front yard that's along Sherman. Just like in 2017, the rear yard was, the rear yard setbacks were granted the variance because of the corner lot. The non-conforming lot, that's not a regular, 45 by 126 and 45 in the rear, so it's definitely a non-conforming lot. The third reason for arguing the variance is that the owner of this property would not be able to enjoy their property as such as the neighbors, as corner lot fences are granted and all over the city of Royal Oak. There is actually a rear yard privacy fence on 302 Maxwell, which is the southeast corner of this. I have photos of that fencing as well. And then the final reason or argument for requesting the variance would that it would not alter any of the character of the neighborhood, as again, there's many privacy fences along rear yard properties on corner lots. So,
Any questions for the petitioner? Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever considered the 4-foot fence that's allowable?
No. Yeah, the privacy fence, just like many other properties in Royal Oak, that's preferred by a lot of owners. So if other owners are able to be granted privacy fences, we feel that we would be able to be granted privacy fences as well.
Well, what about the fact that there's other ways to do that? There's buffers with shrubbery. That fence at 6 feet, the people directly across the street is going to have to look at a 6-foot fence every time they look out their window. And then the property right next door has that where it's almost fortress-like in its design right now. And I think that even a 4-foot fence would be really good. It'd serve its purpose, and it would comply with the zoning.
Yeah, again, I mean, we haven't considered 4-foot fence with shrubbery. The 6-foot fence are, again, all over the city of Royal Oak, so the owners are really wish to enjoy their property as other owners in Royal Oak have enjoyed their properties as well.
Yes, sir.
Have you sold this already?
Nope.
Then you can't speak for the owners that you haven't sold to.
Well, I'm speaking for the owner, the
Okay.
existing owner.
All right, I'm talking about the future one, if you haven't sold it. The concern I have is, right now it is approximately 6 foot tall with that barrier, and it's, when you're down there and you went through it, it seems very, even though it is over the 10 feet, I believe, when I counted it out, it seems very unsafe for one person backing up the neighbor with it being right there. So I am concerned if it's a 6-foot non-cyclone fence that of visibility. Would you be amenable to at least maybe the north side being allowed the 6 foot and the rest being 4 foot? Because I could understand the north side because that's running perpendicular to that house and parallel with the house behind it.
I don't think doing the 4 foot along the south side, but if your concern is visibility from the neighboring property and also from our garage, and to Jeff's comment, yeah, we would obviously conform to the 10-foot rule to make it, I think on the drawing there, 45 or whatever is needed to make that as safe as possible, backing out of the driveway, and then also from the neighbor to the west, we can go a diagonal on that side as well if they're backing out of their driveway to make it much more visible for passing cars.
Well, hold on. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I had a quick question for Joseph. The yellow line between the two, not this side neighbor, but the other line, that can be 6 foot regardless. That's not in question, is it? Even though it's on the other side of the
Yeah, the north fence,
the
that's what my
north
question
fence
was.
line? Okay, I know, I realize that, but that's really kind of an interesting
Yeah, that's why I said
backyard. Okay,
I could be fine with that one. It's-
yeah, right. Go ahead.
Mr. Kroll.
I got to say, I'm a little disappointed with what you've presented to us tonight. It looks more like a railroad track to me than a fence. I mean, we deal with a number of fences, and people come up and at least bring us drawings that are readable. You got a bunch of, looks like chicken marks on this thing, so I don't even know what I'm voting on.
But, I mean, I'll outline the perimeter of the fence highlighted, shown from the survey. So that's what we're proposing to do a 6-foot fence on there, would be the highlighted section from the survey.
Any other questions? All right, if not, I'm going to ask you to take a seat real quickly, sir, just so I can open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the ZBA on this matter? All right, not seeing any, I will go ahead and close it, sir. Eric, why don't you come back up just in case we have any other questions since somebody's going to speak. And I'll bring it back to this side of the table if there's any additional questions. Mr. Ofac?
I'll make a motion just because I'd like to see if this will work or not. I'd like to propose that the variance only be allowed for the north fence line. The rest of it not be granted for it.
We have a motion.
I'll second that.
Second.
Okay. The reason why I say the north and not the rest, because the north actually would align with the current elevation of that fence, which is 6 feet. And I don't think it would do any harm either to its neighboring house nor the visibility of the people who are walking, riding, or driving down that street. The remaining part of that fence, though, I think should remain down at the 4-foot level for safety's sake, and because there's other ways of doing privacy if they want privacy.
Mr. Kroll?
So do you want, you supported it? You want to take
I don't really have anything to add other than that.
Does anybody know the fences across the street, how high they are? They didn't look like they were 6 feet, but they look like they were over 4.
So I have photos of 30, which is this property right here. 302 Maxwell, which was also new construction. Believe that they were granted variances similar to ours. Having the 2 front yard setbacks. I have photos I can pass.
If you want to hand them to Anthony, he'll
Yep.
have them around. Thank you.
So that's one view.
Which one is he talking about? That one across the street?
Southeast corner.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I know this was just asked, but the line to the north, isn't a 6-foot fence permissible there?
No, that's
what I would
That's what I thought too.
That's where I have.
Seems like it should be, some wall should be okay.
Oh, because it's, I see. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm thinking a little bit that the same thing that got this variance of the odd-shaped lot in the first place is kind of hurting it right now, in my mind, because it does tighten up. It doesn't seem like there's room for an expansion of a high fence there. Do you know how high these fences are?
Those are 6 feet.
Yeah. God, the one directly across the street didn't look that big.
I think it's further off.
Yeah, it's further out.
Anderson?
My concern, besides the fact that it's just an eyesore to any of the properties around there, is that we've already granted them a variance for the driveway, and putting up another barricade there on such a short drivable pad could be a hazard regardless of if we have the triangle sightline. I really feel that the house could be just as beautiful with a 4-foot fence.
Even more so.
Correct, even more so.
Well, I certainly do see it differently. You guys know how I feel about fences, and it fundamentally bothers me that one person will say, well, I live along Campbell, and we'll give them a 6-foot fence, when somebody else will say they live along Sherman, and we'll say, well, we don't want them to look at the neighbors to look at a 6-foot fence. At the end of the day, I don't see this gentleman installing a fence that's going to be ugly. Frankly, I think a 6-foot fence that's done well can beautify a neighborhood. I don't see something that's going to be subpar in quality or graffiti filled or what have you. And the same relief that we've granted to a lot of people, I just think that we should apply that consistently. Where you happen to live, in my mind, I don't think should be a factor. Yes, sir.
Mine is nothing according to beauty or whatnot. Mine is just concerning visibility and concern of those traveling up and down, as well as that neighbor pulling out. If you look at purely from the pictures as it is, as well as street view on Google Earth, as well as just driving down there or walking down there, it just seems it's too close, that driveway right to the east or was it?
Well, we do have ordinances on the books that specifically address that, and the building department's not going to allow it to go up if it doesn't meet the visibility triangle standards. So again, I think it's inconsistent application of the law. Yes, sir.
Well, I think to address the safety standpoint, the applicant did mention that he would clip that corner. I don't want to speak for you, but I believe you said that.
Yeah, absolutely. The west corner, we would clip it for the house to the west so that they could easily have plenty of visibility. I mean, if you're driving eastbound on Sherman, and if you're concerned for safety and seeing, I mean, your view obstruction has nothing really to do with the fence. It's it's the corner of the house to see oncoming traffic from Maxwell, and I don't think that really has anything to do. I think the definite safety concerns are obviously of the neighbor to the west. We've spoken with them. We couldn't get a letter of anything stating permission, but that was definitely talked about. And then obviously clipping the corner for whoever the resident will be for this property to make sure that they have plenty of visibility as well.
Yeah, and then on the positive too, it's a relatively short length of fence along Sherman. And then as we know, this is a very challenging lot. There really is no rear yard here. And to get to the space, they're traversing through a 5-foot section behind the garage. So I guess a little bit of privacy could go a long way here.
Yeah.
Well, the way I see it is that they had a blank slate. They could have incorporated some of these thoughts when they designed it in the first place. And I'm just against a 6-foot fence there. I drive that neighborhood all the time, and I see what the temporary fence is doing, and it is concerning to me.
Yes, ma'am.
I drive it and I walk it, and I do think there's a difference between Sherman and Campbell. On Campbell, you're driving most of the time, and it could be 4 lanes. You're driving to get somewhere. On Sherman, you're going home. I think it's not welcoming to have a 6-foot fence. I think it looks like you're walking down an alley when there's 6-foot fences, and we have an ordinance that specifically addresses corner lots, and it doesn't want 6-foot fences there, and I think we have to adhere to it unless we find a really valid reason to change it, to grant a variance, and I don't think there's any reason here.
I think the reason to grant the variance is that it's been granted all over the city. It's not a, this street is different than this, and this beautifies something over this, because, that's...
It's not.
I don't know if there was a question posed to you. And as we're always told, we should never go by precedents. Each one on its matter of its own sake. So.
That's true.
Well, let me present the question differently. We have a motion on the table which would allow you to have a 6-foot fence along the north side of the property line and then a 4-foot fence on the perimeter. We can move forward with a vote on that if you like. If that's just not what you want, I think as a consideration, we could probably table this for a month to see if you can come up with something different that might be more, amenable to this board. I'll give you the option, but I think you can sort of see which way the winds are blowing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a 4-foot fence along the side I think we've, given the safety concern, which is probably the primary concern of this, we've said we would, cut off the corners so that visibility would not be a factor. So, if you want to table it and come back and show you exactly what it would look like, we can do that.
Well, I just want to give you that consideration because I know coming in front of us isn't free, and to give you, if you're okay with, the motion maker and the seconder would need to retract their motions if they want to. You don't have to, obviously. If you want to move forward with the vote, we can move forward with it. It's you made a motion.
I'd be fine with holding off tabling until next month.
One more time for the petitioner's sake, what do you hope to have him come back with next month?
Drawings would be nice.
Anything else?
That would be a good start. I mean, I don't know what,
I don't know what it is that you're
not
looking to
gonna-
find for a drawing. I mean, we
Right.
know what a 6-foot fence is, and we know what a 4-foot fence is.
Right.
And I don't think that there's anything that I need a drawing to see, because we've had so many fences in front of us.
Right.
Where's the issue? I don't understand it.
And if you look at the images already, that basically is a 6-foot tall fence that's got black tarp on it instead of wood. So the only difference here is just decoration. I've already stated my case. It has nothing to do with decoration. So I'd prefer that we just keep it going because it's not going to, drawings will not change my opinion one way or another because it's not about decoration.
All right, so with that being the case, do you want to reintroduce your support?
Yes.
All right, then I guess I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No.
No.
Hands on the nose. 1, 2, 3. Motion carries. Variance is partially granted. All on the north side only.
Okay.
North property line.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so moving right along to our next item of new business, which is item number D2. Case number F190202, public hearing on the appeal of Matthew Kappel, petitioner and owner for the following variance to the city's fence ordinance. Waive 2 feet of the maximum permitted 4-foot fence height within a front yard setback along South Campbell Road to install a 6-foot high, tall, site obscuring fence with a wood fence within a front yard setback as defined in the zoning ordinance located at 1702 Barrett Avenue. Mr. Murphy.
This property is located on the corner of South Campbell and Barrett. I think the aerial photographs that I have in the report are useful in describing the circumstance and getting a visual on it. The house faces Barrett and has a front yard setback, is a corner lot, and has a front yard setback that's required along Barrett, and the property to the south has a front yard setback on Campbell. Therefore, this particular corner lot requires that no structure or fence, in this case, be within the front yard setback of the house to the south on Campbell. The petitioner does have an existing 6-foot tall site obscuring wood fence on that east property line, which is within the front yard setback along Campbell. They're seeking a variance in order to remove that fence and construct a new fence of equal height, 6 feet. And as we previously discussed in the last case, because it's within the front yard setback, it does need to be limited to a maximum height of 4 feet. So they're seeking a waiver in order to essentially reconstruct the fence in a similar fashion as it is now. And there are some good photographs in the report that highlight the current circumstances.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Yes, sir.
Mr. Murphy, is that a commercial property right across the street to the west?
I'd need to look at a Google Street View image. I can't recall off the top of my head.
No, it's not. I know it wasn't because I tried to bid on that house at one time.
Okay. I was just curious.
Property that got converted.
No offense to anyone.
Then you would have been on the Madison Heights zoning board.
No, that was Royal Oak.
Oh, that's it? All
It
right.
wouldn't be in front of us if it was.
I would have beautified it a little better than that, though.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? Not seeing any. Is the petitioner present?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Matthew Kappel. I'm the property owner and petitioner for 1702 Barrett. If you want, while I'm talking, I have a couple printouts of alternate images. If you want to pass them around.
Thank you.
But yeah, so essentially, there's, as was stated, there's already a 6-foot fence, and I'm seeking to replace it with a more professionally installed fence. There's some notable issues with the one as it is now. It's made out of very cheap material, and during last year's, we had a couple of very windy days and just blew slats clean off the fence. There's one that was blown in half. So right now, the appearance of the fence is very poor, and for the sake of myself and my neighbors, I'd like to get a professional fence done to keep the privacy while improving the appearance for myself and everyone else.
Any questions for the petitioners? Yes, sir.
I can guess probably why you want to keep it a 6-foot fence, but do you see any concerns if it was only a 4-foot fence that we granted you?
I do. There is a significant amount of noise that comes from Campbell, and as you know, it's a very heavily trafficked road. So privacy is kind of a more important factor for me. In fact, when I purchased the house, that I would not have purchased a house on Campbell had not already had a 6-foot high privacy fence applied. I'm just trying to maintain that status.
Any other questions?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
If we turn you down tonight, what are you going to do?
The existing fence would stay up as it is.
Any other questions? All right, not seeing any, I'm just going to ask you to step aside for a second so I can open up the public hearing in case anybody wants to address us on this matter. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the ZBA on this issue? All right, not seeing any, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Kroll?
I'm going to make a motion to approve this.
We have a motion.
I'll support it.
We have a second. Mr. Kroll?
He answered my question. I knew it was a kind of rhetorical question because I knew the answer. But this is one of those situations where his neighbors can look at an ugly fence or they can look at a much prettier fence. I think it's no brain. I mean, if I live across the street, I don't want to look at this thing. And if I'm him, I'm not taking it down if we turn it down tonight.
Well, my reasoning's different, of course. It's Campbell, especially there, is still 4 lanes, I think.
Oh.
And it's heavily trafficked, and there is little privacy, and there is a lot of noise. And I think this is a case that an exemption is warranted. So that's why I'm supporting it.
I think we need to look at the major roads and address those in the whole fencing issue. There's been enough of them in front of us that I think it's...
Ms. Anderson?
I would agree with the assessments thus far. The garage itself is almost like a petition fence. So wrapping the other fence, just coming alongside it, doesn't seem to be disturbing anything, and that's why I'll be supporting it.
Any other comments? All right, not seeing any, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. You're all set, sir.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
All right. Moving right along to our third item of new business, item D3, which is case number 190204, public hearing on the appeal of Rebecca and Joshua Thompson, petitioners and owners for the following variances: A, alter and expand a non-conforming structure; B, waive 12 feet of the minimum required 25-foot setback along Hawthorne Avenue related to the expansion of a single-family dwelling to permit construction of a 2-story rear addition to an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling located at 903 North Alexander. Mr. Murphy.
Oh, before we start, I'm going to have to recuse myself. I know the architect on this, and I work with him on another project, so I'm going to recuse myself.
That's very good.
This property is located at the corner of Alexander and Hawthorne. It's a 2-story single-family home with a detached garage that's accessed from Hawthorne. And the petitioner is proposing to construct a 2-story addition to the rear of the dwelling. And the easiest way for me to highlight that is to show you on the aerial photograph. The addition would occur in this portion, the rear of the dwelling, between the existing home and the detached garage, also shown here on the opposite aerial photograph. And since it's a corner lot, it requires a setback not only along Alexander, but it requires the setback along Hawthorne equivalent to the minimum required front yard setback, which under the current ordinance requirements is 25 feet, even though the adjacent home is actually has slightly less than a front yard setback. So the standard is the minimum 25. The existing single-family home, and the easiest way to illustrate that is to reference the photographs. The existing single-family home has a 13-foot setback off of Hawthorne, as shown easily on the photographs that you see. The petitioner is looking to keep the addition in line with the existing home. Therefore, it would retain that existing non-conforming 13-foot setback off of the Hawthorne side. So they're seeking a variance in order to expand the structure to add that 2-story rear yard addition, and they're seeking a variance in order to expand it in a non-conforming manner, and then additionally, they're seeking the variance of 12 feet from the 25-foot setback along Hawthorne. And they've given you some elevations and floor plans which illustrate the proposal that they are seeking to accomplish with the variance.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Yes, sir.
Just one question. The north side setback, would that be 5 feet in this case?
Yes. The petitioner's illustrating a setback.
8'11".
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So there's no other variances required? It's not, the coverage is not going to be an issue at this point?
Correct, it's not, and I can look up what the proposed total lot coverage is, but that it's certainly in our calculation, it didn't need a variance. I can look up the exact number.
Well,
There you go.
23.5%?
Which is less than the maximum, which is 30%.
Right.
Any other questions?
No.
Not seeing any. Please come forward, sir.
Good evening. I'm Brian Wood. I'm from Allen Wood Construction. I'm the owner's representative. Architect Joe Roman couldn't be here tonight, so I'm presenting on his behalf. Basically, the clients purchased this home when they first got married. They didn't have children at the time. Now they have a growing family, and they're outgrowing their home. But they love Royal Oak, and they don't want to move. Because it's a corner lot, they face the dual front yard setback issue, which you're all well aware of. I know that you guys have seen this issue a number of times. But we're trying to stay with only needing the one variance, which is the south lot setback, and we're trying to waive 12 feet of that. We're going to stay in the same plane down the side of the house to try and construct a 2-story addition to get them more bedroom space in the home. Other than that, that's pretty much the only issue that's here before you tonight. If there's any questions, I can answer them. I have square footage and lot coverage and all that information for you.
Yeah, why don't you run that by us real quickly, just so we can read into the record.
All right, it's a 6,048 square foot lot. Mm-hmm. The proposed new building footprint would be 1,419.1 square feet. And the existing home is, you guys know how many square feet currently? 1,000 square feet. And the finished total of the house would be 2,002 square feet. And the first floor footprint is 1,000. And 1,013.9 square feet. So some of that total lot coverage is taken.
You already
by the
say that
garage.
the total lot coverage is going to jump up to 23.5, which is obviously well within
Right, well
allowance.
within the allowance.
Mr. Clapp.
Have you discussed the project with your neighbors? Have you received any approvals or?
The neighbors to our north side are renters currently, but they don't have a problem with it. We're friends with the neighbors 2 doors down that actually have ideas to do the same thing in the future. In addition, the neighbors to the south are also renters, but we discussed it with the neighbors across the street to the east side, and they all seemed very in favor of it. They thought that it should have been done sooner in their opinion.
Great, thank you, appreciate that.
Any other questions for the petitioners? All right. If not, I'm going to ask you folks to take a seat real quickly so I can open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the ZBA on this issue? Ms. Hollow?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Should we switch places here? I got a little nervous
If you
when
need
you
a
walked
sub,
in.
you let me know. So Elizabeth Hollow, I own the house at 827 North Alexander, which is the rental to the south. And I'm glad that I found out about the Thompsons' plans. I wish that I was living there because I would have had a chance to talk to them about their plans to expand their home. You know, as somebody who's not living there right now, I don't feel like I have as much of a say in what, you know, is proposed for the home because I'm not as affected, but someday I hope maybe to be your neighbor again. And my only concern is that we're starting to get a little bit walled in. The house to the south of me has been demoed, and there's now a very large home to the south that runs pretty far back, and I know this will also be a fairly, doubling the size of the home. So my only question, and it's more maybe for the design of the home, is just to add some relief and more windows, maybe so that it's not just a big wall with just a few windows, because aesthetically it does feel like a barrier, and I think we all, for those of us who reside in Royal Oak, that's the beauty of having a more of community, and I think we're building these homes that become very siloed by having them, you know, really obstruct any kind of an openness. And so that would be my only request, if there was any way to be able to look at maybe adding some additional relief on the, thank you. And I think this is the side that'll be facing my home, correct?
Bottom left.
The bottom left, yep. So, you know, just...
Corner to south is what you're looking at.
Okay. Yeah, just, you know, whatever can be done to just create some relief on the side of the house so it's not, you know, just a lot of aluminum siding would be fantastic. I'd appreciate it, but I'm excited that you're planning to stay. That's wonderful. And thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Nice to see you still like windows.
I do love windows. Yes, Alan, you know that. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? All right, not seeing anybody, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Before I move forward with this, we, because of Anthony recusing himself, are down to, in short, 2 members. And obviously you're gonna have to carry 5 of us that are up here. We can certainly move forward if you feel more comfortable tabling this until we have a fuller board. It's entirely your decision.
We'd like to continue tonight.
Okay. All right, so we're back at this side of the table. Mr. Kroll.
I would like to make a motion, and I don't, I would like to incorporate some of Ms. Hollow's thoughts in it as far as the windows. I don't know if I'm able to make that motion to approve it but adding. Is that possible, Joseph?
Unless you're very specific and the variance request relates directly to your contingency. It is granting the variance. Is your contingency directly relate to why you granted the variance? That's what you need to think about.
I think what Ms. Hollow was saying was that the buildings that don't have any architectural relief on the sides, sometimes they feel a little massive. Unfortunately, we can't. They're not asking for more, so if they asked us for a little dormer or something, that's a whole new thing because that's asking more than what they're currently asking. So we couldn't grant that without them coming back again. So, unfortunately. But yeah, I do like to see.
I'm going to withdraw for a minute.
Jeff's got great ideas. Let's hear from him.
Well, I saw Ms. Zukin first.
Well, Jeff, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You're the architect.
No, exactly. I think what Ms. Howell mentioned maybe was some relief in the massing. As architects, that's how, looking at a renovation project like this, that's something we would probably do is have a break in the action there, especially when you're joining new against the old. You have the brick form right there against the siding. I know you're fighting for square footage here, and it's challenging when you have that two front yard setbacks you're dealing with. 48-foot lot, subtract 25 feet, subtract another 5 feet, you're left with 18 feet. So it's not much to work with for that addition. But I agree, maybe even stepping at a foot might help to give some relief on that south side. Windows, I'm not sure. I think sure you can add windows, but I think maybe a break in the action would help a little bit.
to the north.
To the north.
Yeah,
We can expand it anyway, we have 8 foot from
You,
the setback already.
that was my question to Mr. Murphy earlier. You have 8 and 8 foot 11, I believe, on that north side, so you could go to 5 feet. You know, I think up here, we're always looking for ways to try to reduce the variance request. But I also know that pushing that house too far to the north could affect the massing in a negative way too. So we want to make sure that it's balanced out well in all sides.
that's basically what I was going to suggest, because there is more room to the north. You could step it in a foot, and that would get rid of...
A foot?
Yeah.
No, why don't you come to the microphone so the people at home can hear you?
Just to speak to our budget too. We're trying to stay within a pretty tight budget for the job, and the way this is drawn right now, we're trying to utilize a lot of what's existing in the home, and moving it over a foot would basically where we're breaking and starting our new footprint of the home is pretty much right through the middle of where this powder room and kitchen would be. So we'd basically have nowhere to put the powder room on the first floor, and there is no first floor bath existing right now.
What about windows?
Well, we could put maybe, let me see here.
Do we want to do this here, or do we want to bring them back?
I mean, there's no motion on the table at this point. It'd be nice if we had a motion so that we could actually
Alan did make a motion, it wasn't supported though.
All right, so we do have a motion on the floor. What was your motion? I'm sorry.
Well, I never quite finished it. I wanted a contingency in there. I was going to make a motion to approve with a contingency.
Well, why don't you make your motion, and it can always be modified? Because we really shouldn't be micro-speccing this thing without a motion on the table.
I will make a motion to approve based on some windows to break up that side.
Which facade?
South.
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 Do we have a second?
They had like 2 windows there, like boom, 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 boom.
I don't know if we can do that.
right there.
You didn't get a chance to speak.
No, I did speak. What I will say...
Well, hold on.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that we're going to have to kill that motion for lack of a second.
Yeah.
All right, Ms.
No.
Ukin?
What I'm thinking is, it would be nice if it looked better, but they don't need a variance to go back. They're staying within the requirements for the depth and for everything except for the setback, which is already only 13 feet. So I don't think we can require that they alter it. I would prefer that they do, but I think since the only variance they're requesting is to be able to continue the non-conforming 13-foot setback, that's all we should consider.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, this is not unlike countless additions that we've seen on homes. They are not expanding the nonconformity. I don't see, well, and again, there's no motion on the table, so and I feel like I'm almost speaking out of turn, but I don't think it's frankly fair of us to ask this petitioner to change a plan, but for with all due respect to Ms. Hollow, I'm not even sure we'd be having this discussion.
I agree.
All right, I will make a motion to approve.
Yes. Motion by Mr. Kroll.
I'll support.
Second. Any additional discussion? All right, not seeing any, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You're all set. Thank you, sir.
Put some
Perhaps
windows in there, though. A couple windows.
Windows in the closets.
Yeah. One in the one. There's stuff there. They're gonna work too
All
well.
right, so that moves
I
us,
like that. We need design police.
Item D4 of new business, which is case number 190205, public hearing on the appeal of Trowbridge Companies, petitioner and owner for the following variance. A, waive 1 foot of the minimum required 20-foot length for 35 parking spaces to permit construction of a 6-story multiple family building with 70 dwelling units and 105 total parking spaces at 222 East 6th Street and 609 through 611 South Williams. Mr. Murphy.
At the December meeting of the Planning Commission, they approved a site plan and special land use approval to demolish the existing structure that's on site, which is a small office building and 2 houses along Williams, to allow the petitioner to construct a 6-story tall multi-family building. And there were some contingencies which required approvals from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The zoning ordinance requires 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit for multiple family structures in the central business district, and the petitioner has exactly 1.5 spaces per unit for the 70 units that they have approved from the Planning Commission. The building contains ground floor parking and below grade parking, and the parking is accessed via a 2-way driveway, internal driveway within the structure itself. So again, there's no surface parking. All of the parking for the development is located within the structure itself. And those 2-way aisleways need to be at least 20 feet in width, and each of the parking spaces need to be at least 20 feet in depth. We can reference the petitioner's floor plans for each of the levels of parking, and they have a number of parking spaces that do comply with the depth requirement of 20 feet, yet due to the size of the property itself, they're unable to provide all of the parking spaces at 20 feet in depth, and they have 35 of those parking spaces that are only 19 feet in depth. So again, parking spaces need to be at least 20 feet in depth. Aisleways need to be at least 20 feet in width. They either come before you for a variance for parking space depth or an aisleway variance. They chose to elect to seek a variance for some of the parking spaces. And we can zoom in on the floor plan and illustrate those that comply and those that come close but don't comply. I'll reference the frontage, the portion of the building, since it's an L-shaped building. I'll zoom in on the portion, if I can get there, that has frontage along Troy Street. And this distance of frontage along Troy Street is just over 60 feet in width. Obviously, if we take then we'll reference the floor plan for the parking. And at 60 feet in width, if it was a surface lot, it would be perfectly numerical calculation to do a 20-foot aisleway and 2 20-foot depth parking spaces. But obviously they need to accommodate for the thickness of the walls. Therefore, in doing so in the construction, it constrains their ability to provide 20-foot depth parking spaces in this particular portion of the structure, and you can see that they're noted at 19 feet in depth. So they're seeking a waiver from the depth standard of 20 by a foot.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy?
Quick one. Do you know what the aisle width is of the parking structure that is over by Imagine Theater that's been there for a while? That's tight, that's pretty narrow to get up and down through there. I'm just curious as to.
It should be 20 feet. It's a newer structure, so we would have made sure that on the drawings it's 20 feet. Sometimes you never know what gets built. And when you start to put a lot of vehicles in there, it may be 20, but it feels like, because you're not used to it, and especially there are a lot of people traversing through there on a regular basis that don't, in this case, live there on a regular basis, that aren't accustomed to it. They don't come to a parking structure every day versus somebody who lives in this facility that would be accustomed to parking there and full of vehicles and having that feeling of being closed in.
Do you know if this particular structure, if they're going to assign parking slots, or is it going to be open?
I don't know that. The petitioner would be able to reference that.
Any other questions? All right, not seeing any. Is the petitioner present?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bruce Michael. I'm with Trowbridge Companies, and I'll state a few remarks in support of what we'd like to do and then answer any questions you might have. First of all, we're a family-owned business that are long-term holders of assets like these. There's several of our assets we've held for decades, and our intention is to hold this for a very long period of time, so we're not selling it as a condominium building and then walking away. In that regard, that makes us people that are really concerned about quality of what we have. Enough parking spaces, highly done, highly well maintained, high quality design and construction. We believe in that long term, that just helps us in terms of that asset not losing value as we go along. We engaged in a process with this to come up with the design that we did, met with the city staff, and we also held what we called a citizen engagement meeting or a citizen participation meeting on our own, where we put mailings out to all of our neighbors within essentially the same radius as if though the city was rezoning the property, and would mail that out to all those people, held the meeting with them, listened to their concerns, and heard overwhelmingly that enough parking is very, very important, that there are limitations on parking all throughout the city and especially in this part of the city. So we adjusted our design a little bit to the point where we've complied with the parking standards to make sure we have enough. And have also dealt with some other issues that some of the neighbors did have, particularly the ones that are right next to the building, and in general have support from those people after going through that process. Regarding parking stuff itself, because we're long-term holders, this having enough is important. I think eventually we are going to more driverless cars. We have millennials that are looking at, not driving at all, but we are the motor city, and we don't have, say, San Francisco or New York or something like that in terms of infrastructure that allows people to get by without cars as much as they can in those cities. So it's important that we do have the parking that we have here. Cars have gotten smaller. The average size car today being built is under 16 feet, and even the SUVs, even a Ford. I'm sorry. Explorer. They have so many. Escape. There's so many of them. I get confused. But even a Ford Explorer is just over 16 feet long. So we're not looking at a 1973, Pontiac Bonneville that you could land, airplanes on the hood kind of a thing. So I think these smaller spaces can easily accommodate the kind of cars that are being parked today, even the larger SUVs that are out there. Your neighboring communities even have as their standard smaller spaces. For instance, Ferndale has a 9x18 standard parking space. Pleasant Ridge is a 9x18 parking space, and Ferndale even allows 20% of their spaces to be reduced to 8x16. We think 9 feet's important because the width of cars hasn't gotten smaller. The length has gotten shorter, but the width has pretty much stayed the same. So we think going down below 9 feet is not helpful. We really can't use the properly effectively if we can't get this variance, because we can't do what Joseph has described so adequately. We can't do a double-loaded parking bay, and it would take down the number of parking spaces we can have without this variance to the point where the building gets significantly smaller and makes it less efficient to operate. With the size of the building we have now, we can put full-time staff on the building and properly maintain it and manage it and make sure that it is not going to become any kind of an issue by being an absentee landlord. So the double loading is a fairly important thing for us, and as you can see, we really don't have many things we can do. We're 120 feet, not 122 feet in the widest part of the site, and we're 60 feet, not 61 or 62 feet, and so we can't put those walls in. And for us to have a building on stilts and then just open parking underneath would be unsightly, unsafe, and not anything that I think anybody wants to see, because we want that urban streetscape that we have as we've designed the building now. We also have looked at alternatives. We looked, can we go down? Can we go up? Are there other things we can do? The issue is we can't go down because we're already going one level down on the ground, and right below us is the groundwater table. So we would have a permanent issue if we were trying to park basically below the level of that groundwater. Going up would cause us to have to raise the building more, and we have a specific height that we've been approved for at this point in time. So the granting this request would allow us to maintain what we've has been approved by the Planning Commission, with the recommendation that we come here to deal with the various and sundry parking kinds of issues that we have. With that, that concludes my remarks, and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Are there any questions for the petitioner? Mr. Olfak, then Ms. Anderson.
Ladies first.
Either way.
So my question was having to do with will the spaces be assigned to the specific apartments? And I'm only asking you that because if it was open spaces, it's possible that you could then designate those 35 spaces as compact cars only or something like that.
We in all likelihood, because we have a not 2-to-1, 1.5-to-1 parking spaces, we'll be assigning spaces because there'll be some people will have 2 and some people will have 1. So we would assign. I think we could probably put a designation on it if requested, but I think you'll find a lot of the public parking structures have 16-foot spaces they call compact spaces, because truly the car, big car is going to stick out the end of that space. But here, even the large vehicles they have today would still be approximately 3 feet shorter than the space itself.
Mr. Olfak.
The question I had was, if you're trying to get, and sometimes inches is what really matters in the game, I can definitely understand on the street side of keeping that nice in appearance that you have it, but on that side with the existing building, if I remember this correctly, could that wall have been do a little bit different to gain a few more inches down there in the parking area? Or I don't know all the details in particular of what that existing construction is like there, so I don't know.
Well, what's there is an existing wall that the other building enjoys, and it's obviously a structural wall holds that building up. So I don't think we'd be able to rely on their building to hold up our part of the building on our side.
Right, and I imagine you're doing a fire separation wall too.
Yeah, we'll have to comply with all the building codes. We obviously will have to work closely with that neighbor to make sure that we underpin footings and do all the appropriate things there.
Okay.
I mean, to sort of go back to a comment that Ms. Anderson made, when that structure was being built, you're talking the one next to the Imagine.
Right.
That was being constructed. Rich and Associates actually built that, and I specifically remember the discussion in terms of the theater capacity that they were dealing with, along with the other auxiliary uses in relation to how many spaces they could get. And, Rich and Associates, I even remember them saying that our standard size for a parking lot is one of the largest in Metro Detroit. Frankly, I don't see 19, but it's almost borders on no-brainer, frankly, to me.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks for the history.
All right. Any other questions for the petitioner? I'm going to ask you to take a seat real quickly, sir, so I can open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the ZBA on this matter? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Deborah Savino. I live across Troy Street from the proposed development, and it's 603 South Troy, sorry.
Thank you.
And I would like to support the petitioner's request for this zoning because they've got a beautiful structure, and we knew something was going to happen with that lot. I've lived across from it for 30 years, and they've made great strides in working with the neighbors for the concerns that we've had. Mine, because the parking will be right across the street from my house. I have agreed to put screening up on those windows on the first level because of the headlights coming through and a flash in my house. So they've agreed to that. So I would just like to say they've been very straightforward, and we appreciate the development.
It's always nice to hear when petitioners take that extra step and do that for the neighborhood. So thank you for saying that.
It helps a lot. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Olfak?
I'll make a motion to grant the variance as requested.
We have a motion.
Support it.
We have a second. Mr. Ofac?
Being that I park in the Fisher Building and it has very small lanes as well as small parking spots, the parking spots aren't the problem, it's the cramped lanes. So I'd rather deal with a smaller parking lot size, and as has been noted, 19 is still above the average size vehicle that most of us do, although it's a surprise to see some of those with a huge Ford F-150 try and eat their way up the Fisher Building ramp, but they get up there. So I think for the most part, this would be acceptable for most of the people that live there. I'm sure if someone's got a very large vehicle, they'll probably request to have a different spot. So I don't see a problem with a few of these spots being 19. If it was all 19, maybe a bigger issue, but that's some.
Mr. Kroll?
Yeah, I think it's a great project. I appreciate them not coming in front of us for parking variances, because I think that would be a problem in that neighborhood. But seeing as they've been able to accomplish this by just shortening it a foot, I think I agree with the smaller cars today. I don't really see that as even an issue.
Yes, sir.
I'll be in support as well. I think it's a very efficient layout, and I agree with the applicant. It works well, and it's a nice design. Thank you.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
I'll just add, I appreciate the presentation, laying out how Ferndale and Pleasant Ridge and everybody else had smaller spaces. Made it pretty clear for me because I was concerned about the engineering. And the fact that it's less than a third of the spaces, I'm just fine with it.
All right, not seeing any other comments, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? They're all set. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, so that moves us right along to our final item of new business, which is item D3, case number 190206, public hearing on the appeal of In Seasons Properties LLC, petitioner and owner for the following variance. Waive 8 of the minimum required 31 total off-street parking spaces to permit expansion of a restaurant with no off-street parking located at 500 through 502 East 4th Street. Mr. Murphy.
More recently, the applicant was in front of the City Commission in October of 2017, and they received approval for a plan of operation to obtain a liquor license, but it was contingent upon going through an approval process for site plan approval process, which they did receive site plan approval from the Planning Commission at last month's meeting, and it was with a contingency that they received the necessary variance today in front of you. The property is located at the corner of 4th and Knowles. Actually, two properties, technically two pieces of property, 500 East 4th Street and 502 East 4th Street. 500 East 4th has been a restaurant for a fair number of years, and the adjacent space was previously a professional office, according to our records. And the petitioner is proposing to combine the pieces of property into one and seeking approval to utilize the what will be the adjacent tenant space at 502 on their floor plan. You can see for utilization as a portion of the restaurant as essentially kitchen space for restaurant employees and storage of items. So not floor area dedicated to tables and chairs. We do count whether there's floor area for tables and chairs or for kitchen space. We do count that as usable floor area. People will either be sitting as customers or working as employees in those general areas. We do count that as usable floor area, and it requires 1 parking space per 65 square feet for a restaurant. We do not include things like walk-in coolers, mechanical rooms, and restrooms. But any other area where people would either be utilizing the space on the floor area on a regular basis as employees or customers, we do count that towards the usable floor area. And the eastern portion of the tenant space, again 502, it's approximately 800 square feet of usable floor area, and it requires a greater amount of off-street parking in comparison to the previously approved professional office space, which required 1 parking space for 225 square feet. So the existing restaurant It doesn't have any on-site parking that meets any ordinance requirements. There is a public alley to the rear of the building and a small space between the building and the alley, but nothing to officially call a parking space. So there isn't any parking space on the property whatsoever right now. And the current restaurant requires 18 parking spaces. The proposed the approval for use of the adjacent tenant space would require an additional 13 parking spaces. And again, that's in comparison to the previous use, which was office, which required 5. Now, our office would administratively approve another office use that requires 5 parking spaces. There's no change, there's no increase, but to be able to seek approval to use it as floor area for the restaurant triggers the higher parking calculation and triggers the need to seek a variance of that difference. Again, 13 versus 5. So they're here seeking the waiver in order to have approval in order to use the floor space next door for the restaurant purposes. And again, that's in the future. If they would use that space, we'll look at the floor plan. They could use the space as they've shown, which is storage and preparation, or they could use it for tables and chairs for employees. We count it all the same. And I'll bring up the floor plan so you have an understanding. On the left-hand side of the screen is the restaurant dining room, with the back area being the restrooms and traditional kitchen. There's a break in the wall that then leads to that adjacent tenant space. Again, was previously a professional office, and it's designated as a berry-free restroom, a mechanical room, a break room, and then a large preparation storage area. This area could be used for, as it's shown on the floor plan, or it could be used for additional dining purposes.
All right, any questions? Yes, sir.
If we approve this, what happens if they decide later on to take over some of that office space and storage space and turn that into extra dining? Would this variance still uphold, or they'd have to come back at that time to?
They would be applicable. They would be able to do so.
Okay.
Any other questions? Sir.
So you said it was a former business use, but do they currently occupy that portion of the space?
Petitioner can tell you his history of utilizing that space
Okay.
without seeking the prior
Thank you.
approvals.
Anybody else? All right, not seeing any. Is the petitioner present? Yes, sir. The floor is yours.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Nicholas Raftis. I bought this In Season Cafe back in 2002 in the summer. I was represented by Plunkett & Cooney, and I was sold both of these buildings and the business at one time as a licensed, authorized, legitimate business. Well, after I got this liquor license, Tim Teewing showed up and said, hey, this building does not have an occupancy permit. And so I was in complete shock, because I thought this building was built later and it's being basically used for office and storage. The prior owner used it for 5 years, probably since 1995-ish, 96, in the same way that I've been using it since I bought it in 2002. I know it says we're talking about an expansion, but in reality, we're not. We're talking about keeping it being utilized the same way we've been doing it for 21 years. We don't have customers go into 502. The 502 has 3 desks in it, one for me, one for the chef, and one for my general manager. All of us are stockholders in the corporation that run the In Season. I am personally the owner of the corporation that owns the buildings. So both buildings are under my responsibility. Now, I have some pictures here. This is the site plan approval. There is no hole in the wall. This is what's going to be done when you give me the variance tonight. That's what I have to do. Can I give you this and you can pass it around?
Please hand it, yeah.
Okay, just so you know.
Well, sir, hand them all to Anthony. He'll hand them around and hop back on the mic so they can hear you at home.
Okay. This is the front office, and this is the storage.
Thank you.
We can't repurpose this space to seat people because then we would have no place to store the food. You know, we're a specialty restaurant. Some of the things we get, we have to order 2 weeks in advance and we have to store them for a while, right? Until we use them because they're specialty products and they don't come daily or even weekly. So there has to be some place for us to keep this stuff. So we can't, there is going to be zero customer seating expansion. There's no expansion in anything, really. I mean, well, Joe Murphy left. So apparently,
You'll be right back.
Office and storage, when the storage aspect, when combined with the restaurant, and I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly, Joe can speak more to it, but inside the DDA and in this mixed use, you can't have any storage. So in order to comply with the ordinance, we have to join the two buildings together legally. Now, I've submitted that paperwork to the assessor's department, and it's gone through all the departments, and it's on its way. It's been sent to the county to resolve, this two parcels into one parcel. So we're eliminating the property line between 502 and 500. And that allows us to join the two buildings together. So obviously, since 1996, we have the ADA, so we have to have an ADA compliant bathroom, I guess, even though we're not going to have any customers over there.
Well, sir, you're giving us a lot of information about the deed that you're dealing with and the build out that the planning department. We're really just talking about parking spots here. Can you speak to us in terms of how the parking works there, your customers, where do they typically park, so forth? Because that's really the only battle that we're fighting tonight.
Yeah, there is a zero impact on parking with this, with whatever you approve tonight. Nothing is going to change parking-wise. People have street parking. They park on Knowles. They park on 4th Street. So that's, and then of course we have, a block away we have at Grant Park. We have the
that center median parking.
Yeah. So in terms of 502. It's for anytime in the near future, there's nothing going to be happening parking-wise. This variance is not going to increase seating. We're not going to have extra tables. And, the people that go, like, we get deliveries in 502 and stuff like that. So we're just trying to comply with the ordinances. That's what the variance is for.
Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I'm a little confused. So the variance is really for the entranceway into the other building? Because right now there's no entrance and you have to go around the back and come in and out. Is that?
That's true.
Okay.
You can't join two buildings together across the property line. So the property line has to be dissolved before you can do that. And that's the process I've already instigated.
That's why it's kicked into the higher.
You're right, because the spaces are exactly, you're combining your square footage and you're looking at, the city obviously looks at it more from a worst case scenario. I mean, in the future, if this is granted, not to say that you're not a man of your word, but at some point in time, if your operation changed or somebody bought you out, they wanted to turn that other portion into a restaurant, then obviously that would certainly be their prerogative.
Well,
so that's what's triggering the number that we're looking at tonight.
We would have to reappear because it's not part of our plan of operations. So if we were going to increase the seating, Lieutenant Moore issues a seating requirement. If we were going to change the seating requirement, we would have to appear in front of the city commission and approve, and they would have to approve our plan of operation with the additional seating. And Lieutenant Moore would have to be involved.
The liquor license triggers that.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. Yeah. So there's no increase in seating. Zero, unless I appear in front of the commission.
Right, that is
correct. And I have no intention, and nobody has any intention because we have no place else to store the food. We have to have food. We're a restaurant. We have to have food to sell.
All right, so, let me do this, sir. Let me ask you to take a seat real quickly. Did you want to speak on this matter, sir?
Yeah.
Please, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name's Tony Snow. I have an income property at 313 and 311 Phillips, which is kind of kitty corner from In Season. And I'm over there, well, this week I had to shovel the walks twice, so I was over there 2 times this week. I'm by there all the time, and I've never seen any parking issues around this restaurant. I've never run through there and said, geez, I can't get through because there's so many people parking. I've never seen it. So it doesn't appear to be an issue with the parking as far as I can see.
Thank you for saying that. All right. I will go ahead. I'm assuming you don't want to speak on this. I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table. Mr. Kroll?
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion to approve this.
We have a motion.
I'll support.
We have support. Mr. Kroll?
For 16 years or something since this gentleman's owned it, it's been used this way other than you had to go outside to get into the other side. Anybody who's ever been in the restaurant business around it knows you've got to have places to do things other than serve food. And in looking at the floor plan, I don't see how, without getting another store next door, how you'd even be able to entertain serving anybody else. I think what we have here is really, I mean, that restaurant has been such a part of the community for so many years, and you'd think, you'd think you have a bunch of people yelling and screaming about parking, but it's just been kind of beautifully integrated into the neighborhood. And I think the people that live around it see it as a great resource and asset to the community. So I'd hate to see us make a move here today that would change something that doesn't need to be changed. So I'm terribly for this.
I think this case is a very unique circumstance and has unique hardships upon its own. It's been operating this way for years, and just because they finally want to combine this stuff together, now this triggers all this. They're not changing any of their operations. All they are putting in a hole in the wall and putting in new toilets. I don't see how this is changing anything that's already there. So it's not making a bigger impact. And so that's their unique hardship. So I have no problem supporting it.
All right. Any other comments? All right, then I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All set, sir. Thank you.
We never gave you the option of coming back next month. Did you want to consider that? Yeah, please. Right about now would be good, actually.
All right, so that moves us along to other business. We have the election of the officers.
Is this a motion? Am I making a motion here? I'll make a motion to keep them the same.
I will support that.
Very technical.
All right. Is there any other discussion or any other nominations from the floor? All right, not seeing anything, I will go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, so that we have an empty auditorium now, so I guess we're on to the mystery motion.
Motion to deny or to go home.
Denying yourself to go home there, Alan?
Go home. Go somewhere.
All right, we have a motion.
Adjourn.
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it a second.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.